Applying firm continuous pressure stops bleeding. Depending on the situation, the location of the wound, and the equipment you have, you may use direct pressure, a tourniquet, or both to control life-threatening bleeding. Use direct pressure to stop life-threatening bleeding when the wound is on the head, neck, or trunk. The wound is on an arm or a leg and you are waiting for someone to bring you a tourniquet or no tourniquet is available. You can also use direct pressure to stop non-life-threatening bleeding. It takes a lot of pressure to stop life-threatening bleeding. That's why you need to push hard. The amount of pressure might be painful for the injured person. That's okay. You need to use a lot of pressure for the bleeding to stop. A flat, hard surface underneath the injured body part allows you to press against something, increasing the effectiveness of the direct pressure. To begin, if you have gloves, wear them. But if the bleeding is life-threatening and you don't have gloves, begin providing care immediately. Make sure you wash your hands thoroughly after giving care. Then, find the source of the life-threatening bleeding. Remember, there may be more than one wound. You need to focus on any wound that is causing life-threatening bleeding first. Next, you're going to place a dressing on the wound. A dressing is a pad that absorbs blood and can promote clotting. Bleeding control kits and first aid kits often contain special dressings called hemostatic dressings. This is a hemostatic dressing. It contains a substance that promotes clotting and can help stop bleeding faster. When there is life-threatening bleeding, use a hemostatic dressing if you have one. Otherwise, use a gauze pad or other available material, such as a clean t-shirt, as a dressing. The technique of applying direct pressure is the same regardless of the type of dressing you use. Place a dressing on the wound and push down with both hands. You need to apply a lot of pressure to stop life-threatening bleeding, so let the person know it can be painful. Sir, this could hurt. Apply pressure directly over the wound until the bleeding stops. Position your body over the wound so your shoulders are directly over your hands with your elbows locked. If you have been trained in CPR, you might recognize this position. Push down, using your body weight to increase the pressure. If you need your hands, use your knee to apply pressure. If blood soaks through the original gauze pad, you don't need to do anything, but you can apply an additional gauze pad and continue direct pressure. If that gauze pad becomes soaked, you can remove that one and replace it with a new pad. However, do not remove the original gauze pad that is placed directly on the wound. Also, only add one pad on top of the original. Do not stack multiple pads as this weakens direct pressure. If the bleeding stops before EMS arrives, check for circulation beyond the injury. Note the temperature and color of the skin and ask the person if there is any tingling or numbness. Sir, are you experiencing any tingling? Any numbness? Then, apply a roller bandage over the dressing to hold it in place and maintain pressure on the wound. Place the end of the bandage on the dressing at a 45-degree angle. Continue wrapping the bandage over the dressing. Then, tape to secure the dressing. Check again for circulation beyond the injury. If there is any change, the bandage may be too tight and you will need to carefully loosen the bandage. Sir, are you experiencing any tingling, any numbness? After the bandage is appropriately applied, remove your gloves and wash your hands. So to summarize, when using direct pressure to stop bleeding, remember two key things. 1, Press as hard as you can directly over the wound. 2. Hold the pressure until the bleeding stops. Usually this takes at least 5 minutes, but it could take much longer. Keep applying direct pressure until the bleeding stops, a tourniquet is applied for life-threatening bleeding from an arm or leg, another person relieves you, you are too exhausted to continue, or the situation becomes unsafe. For life-threatening bleeding on an arm or leg, use a tourniquet. While waiting for a tourniquet, or if a tourniquet is not available, use direct pressure. There are different types of tourniquets available. All work by applying pressure. If you have gloves, wear them. But if the bleeding is life-threatening and you don't have gloves, begin providing care immediately. Make sure you wash your hands thoroughly after giving care. Remember, the person may have more than one wound. Find the source of any life-threatening bleeding and care for that wound first. This is a windlass rod tourniquet. It has 4 parts: a strap, a buckle, a rod, and a clip with a triangle fastener. To begin, place a tourniquet 2 to 3 inches above the wound. You want the tourniquet to be between the wound and the heart. Avoid placing the tourniquet on top of the wound or on a joint. Warn the person that tightening the tourniquet may be painful, but it is necessary to control the bleeding. Sir, this may hurt. Attach the buckle or pass the end of the strap through the buckle. And then think pull, twist, clip. Pull the free end of the strap until the tourniquet is as tight as you can get it around the limb. Some tourniquets may allow you to fasten the strap back onto itself after you have pulled it as tight as possible. Twist the rod to finish tightening the tourniquet. Keep twisting the rod until the bleeding stops or until you can't twist it anymore. Don't stop even if the person complains of pain. Then, clip the rod in place to prevent it from untwisting. Now let's take a closer look at the steps for applying a windlass rod tourniquet. Place the tourniquet. Pull the strap. Twist the rod until the bleeding stops or until you can't twist it anymore. Then clip the rod in place. You may see other types of tourniquets in addition to windlass rod tourniquets. Although tourniquets may have slightly different designs, all are applied in generally the same way. Position the tourniquet, tighten it, and secure it in place. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for applying the tourniquet that you have. This is a ratcheting tourniquet. Instead of twisting a rod to tighten a ratcheting tourniquet, lift the buckle to operate the ratchet and tighten the tourniquet, like this. Keep lifting the buckle until the bleeding stops or you cannot lift the buckle anymore. Ratcheting tourniquets are self-securing. No matter what type of tourniquet you are using, you can apply a second tourniquet if you've tightened the first tourniquet as much as you can, but the bleeding hasn't stopped. Apply the second tourniquet above the first, closer to the heart. After you've applied the tourniquet, don't loosen or remove it. That should only be done by a medical professional.
The technique for using a tourniquet on a child is the same as for an adult, but not all tourniquets tighten enough to stop bleeding, especially in small children. So, keep these important points in mind. 1. Tourniquets currently are not recommended for children under approximately 2 years of age. For these children, direct pressure will likely stop the bleeding. 2. Make sure the child and parent or guardian understand the reason for the tourniquet and warn them that it will likely be painful, but this means it is applied tight enough to work. 3. Make sure the tourniquet you have will work. If you're unsure, try it. But if you are unable to fully tighten the tourniquet, remove it and continue applying direct pressure. 4. When placing the tourniquet on a child, make sure you tighten the strap so that there is no room between it and the limb before activating the tightening mechanism. If the tourniquet is not tight enough around the leg, it may be beneficial to move the tourniquet closer on the limb to the body where the extremity is thicker. Twist the rod to finish tightening the tourniquet.